Attention all you rule breakers, you misfits and troublemakers, all you free spirits and pioneers, all you visionaries and nonconformists. Everything the establishment has told you is wrong with you is actually what's right with you. You see things others don't. You are hardwired to change the world.
Today we're with Martin of Heartmath, and thank you, Howard, for coming on.
Hey, Rahasya, pleasure to be with you today. Glad I had an opportunity to hook up with you and do this interview.
Absolutely. You know, and I think a lot of people know a lot about HeartMath, and we'll give some background about that too. But what I'm really interested in is today, right now, and where is HeartMath? Where are we going? Because the way I see it, we have sort of and you can see it bubbling up through the consciousness of even low conscious people. There's a sacred kind of emerging reality that is coming to light. And personally, I think that's the only thing that's really going to save this planet. And it's like Einstein said, we're never going to come up with the solutions from the same level that created the problems. And so do you think HeartMath and technology like this is going to help that direction out?
Well, let me just say first that, as I've said many times, we're in the midst of a dimensional shift in the consciousness field itself. The biggest one, I believe, since there's been humanity on our planet. And it's at a very critical point. It's a super high-speed change time period that we live in. Things are moving in the right direction, regardless of what we seem to see from time to time on the news. In other words, if you were to look at the overall trajectory of things, you can see that there's an emerging consciousness that you just mentioned, where millions, hundreds of millions of people all around the world are operating a bit differently with a different set of values, different set of beliefs. They're seeing the world differently than they used to, and they're manifesting that in their behaviors, and that's filtering itself down slowly in some ways, but very quickly in another, about how systems work, how society itself works. We watch the news and we see all the aberrant behavior, we see the conflicts, we see all those things, and at times it can appear as if maybe things are headed for something worse. It's my belief, very strong belief, that we've already crossed the line where the apocalyptic scenarios on a mass scale are not going to be a reality. We've earned our way to that already. There's been enough love, enough care, enough compassion, enough change in consciousness put out to the planet already that we're past that point. We're still in a process where there's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be challenges. And to your point, it takes a different kind of intelligence or consciousness to meet those challenges. It is my strong belief and observation of people around the world that consciousness is alive and well and emerging. HeartMath plays its part in that, of course. I believe that part of the consciousness shift is really about the emergence of a new understanding of the intelligence of the heart. And that's not about HeartMath. That's part of the evolutionary imperative itself. We're timely, in a sense, through the vision of our founder, Doc Childrey, now some 40 years ago, and that's how long I've known him, is to be able to see these changing times coming and to be able to understand the emergence of heart within the context of that. So we're timely in the sense that we developed now over 25 years a system, as you know, and as many of the viewers know, of tools, techniques, methods, and technology, all underpinned with scientific research to help people connect with something they already have, which is the power and intelligence of their heart. Our technology, in fact, does play a role in that. But there's more to it than that. And it's, again, us, I think, meeting the needs of an emerging intelligence that is essential for the times we live in, that has a lot to do with the consciousness shift and the choices we are making individually, collectively, that are in fact right now, as you and I are speaking, rewriting our future.
Yeah, it's interesting you use the word apocalypse, because that's one of the words that's been almost hijacked. Originally, it meant a lifting of the veil. And I think that is what's happening. If that's the true word of apocalypse, this is it. It's a lifting of the veil. So what do this is, speaking of technology, I use this all the time too. The little
fantastic. The little M-Wave, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's great.
Because I started noticing, excuse me, I took some neural feedback training in Mountain View at the BioCybernaut Institute, and I noticed every time my brain would get in coherence, the alpha would be more stable at that point. So using this little device, getting my my brain and my heart and my breathing into coherence. It really helps because I can recognize that alpha state because of the neural feedback training I've had. So I found it really amazing that this little teeny device here could do so much. Then a friend of mine has some of the more updated computer software that you guys have, and that's really amazing.
Well, that little device, which I'm glad you have that. I'm really glad that you're using it in the way that you're using it. There's a lot of really powerful technology packed in that little device. It's measuring changes in your heart rhythms. The medical term for that is heart rate variability analysis. And then through a patented algorithm that our researchers developed, it scores those heart rhythms and determines how ordered they are. The more ordered and synchronized they are when they're moving sort of in this beautiful sine wave-like pattern, that's beneficial. That improves everything from physical health, nervous system synchronization, heart health, the hormonal releases, a lot of physical things. But more importantly, and I think what's appropriate to say to you and to your listeners, is it puts you in a state where more of our spirit can merge with our humanness. And that merger of spirit and humanness represents the next level of intelligence. It's an intuitive intelligence, and that's what it's going to take to solve the problems. So the little device you have is called the M Wave, EMWAVE, and it does the things that I just mentioned. It's simple to use, easy to use, but it's got a lot going on for it. And now you may not know this, I don't know if you do or not, but we came out a couple of years ago with the same technology available in Apple devices.
Oh yeah,
iPhones,
plugs right into your
iPads, all this stuff. Yeah, you download the app for free from the Apple Store, and you buy a sensor, and it plugs into your phone, and then you've got all that same technology right there on your telephone or your iPad. We don't have it for Android, and that's not in our immediate plans. But for all the Apple devices, it's a cool way to use technology that helps you, as opposed to something that gets in the way and drives you crazy after a while.
Yeah, actually, my friend Ray Varlinsky, he goes to your workshops and things. We took a couple of those devices to Brazil, and they were just thrilled over them.
I bet they were, yeah. Well, I know Ray. Ray was at the last event we did in Mexico last year. I just got back from the one we just finished this year, but he was there last year, yeah. Yeah,
he really enjoyed it too. So let's get down to something that would really help. Actually, this is a personal question of mine, but I think it's one that a lot of people have. It's really good to stay positive, have positive emotions, and I'm sure that enters into a lot of this. How do you stay positive and still look at reality and what's going on? How do you process that in a heart kind of a way?
Well, I think that we have to look at a couple things there that are related. One is we have to reduce the drama that we are in fact adding, how we're using our emotional energy. We tend to add a lot of drama, and the other, sister term for that is significance. And, we have emotional habits. It's just that simple. We see something, we hear something, bumps us a certain way or hits our vanity or evokes a concern. And that's okay. That's normal. That's natural human reaction. And we want that. We want to feel those things. But what happens next, however, is we tend to dump all this extra emotional energy in it, and we're like feeding it. And all of a sudden we're making something we put on the news a bigger deal than it may be. And then what happens on the back end of that a lot of times is we start adding blame and judgment to it. They shouldn't be doing that, and if they would only do this, and the government should do so and so, if the companies would just stop it, or if these people in another country would act a different way. And what we're doing is we're just bleeding off so much emotional energy, that it ends up having an impact. What that does over time really is lower the vibratory rate in the consciousness. It lowers the pitch, and then we start seeing the world through the eyes of a lower pitch. The antidote for that is to have your care, have your compassion, but try to maintain a very solid, right in the core of your being, centered place with all of that, so that you can observe it and have that compassion, but not be just taken down through the same old predictable emotional processes. And that's possible through the heart. The heart gives us, one of the things about heart intelligence, the coolest thing about it, is it gives us a greater ability to regulate our emotions. I use the term regulate intentionally there. It's not about suppressing or never feeling. It's about how do we make emotional choices that keep us in a higher pitch, that keep us more regenerated, that keep us in a place of higher service versus the predictable patterns. the intelligence of the heart can wrap itself around those emotions. It works at a faster speed than the emotions. So it can wrap itself around those emotions and help guide that process a bit better. And it's through that process of emotional regulation, what a dry term, but it's true, that we actually advance tremendously in consciousness, because it's a missing step a lot of times. We want higher consciousness, but yet sometimes don't want to, to deal with emotions that we know are just not healthy for us.
Yeah, I like how you look at emotions, and that makes total sense too, because I find myself adding a little bit of drama when I'm looking into different things that happen. That all kinds of things come across my desk from people, to write about, interview about, and everything, and it's so difficult not to get emotionally involved, But I think, and I very seldom use religious metaphors, but one that I've always liked comes out of the Middle East is believe in Allah, but tie up your camel first. And they're not saying tie up your camel, then worry about it being stolen, or just, it seems like in life, you do what you feel like you have to do, then let it go. But I do find myself getting involved in it in a drama kind of a way. So that does make sense.
Well, but first of all, cut yourself some slack for that, because everybody does it. It's standard. It's standard human programming, and I tell you where it comes from. It comes when someone like you and many of the people watching our interview. It comes from care. You care. If you didn't care, these things wouldn't have emotional significance. But there's a term in Heartmath, and we teach about this, and it's in our books and it shows up in our training programs, called overcare. Overcare is that place where the care that we started out with crosses a line and then takes on those characteristics of worry and anxiety and judgment and those kind of things. But it started with what? Care. You can't have overcare unless you cared first. So what you're experiencing, I often experience in my own life. It can be things that get me that way, and I end up having too much emotional feed into something. But I just try to return to my original care, go back to that balanced place inside that's got a cleaner feeling to it, where the intended care is operating at a higher place. And it hasn't taken on yet all the other aspects that we associate with care that really are not quite care, but they are so easy to attach themselves to our original caring intention.
When I first started hearing about Heartmath, the word that comes to light so often is balance. And what it seems like we're looking for is a new state of consciousness. And it takes me back to a time when I was learning to ride a bicycle. As I was learning to ride the bicycle, using my mind, okay, I'm falling to the right, so I need to pull it to the left. Like I was making these conscious decisions on how to do this. It was awkward. I would fall, get up, try again. But there was that magic moment of a conscious shift to another part of my mind where I felt like I was sailing, just gliding along.
I remember that feeling. It's a great analogy. I remember the feeling myself.
And it was in that instant I realized, oh my gosh, what was once inevitable, falling, has now become impossible. I can't go against this new state of consciousness. And it seems like that's what we're looking for, except in a more of a spiritual, balanced kind of a way, where we're not suppressing our old instincts, our old ways of thinking, but processing it in a new way. Am I right in thinking this?
You are, and let me just add another hopeful perspective about it. What people are looking for that you've described is right in front of their face. It's so strong right now to be able to do that, to hit that new jet stream and move in consciousness in a different way, to move past surviving, and trying to get through the shift into this place where you're co-creating within it and you're thriving. It's so close to everybody right now. It's right in our face. Consciousness has moved that way. Spirit has moved closer to humanness. It's right there for the taking. What we have to do is we have to want it. And we have to be willing to take those last steps within ourselves to go get it. And those last steps are just little things. They can be big things, but they're really little things. They're the parts in our own personal growth processes where we've gotten the intuitive nudges for a long time to do certain things or not do certain things. And there's those places where we just haven't quite yet completed that out. Once we do, once we make those little steps, that self-empowered step, then boom, there you are. You move right into it. Analogy that's fresh for me that I'll use that relates was we just finished our annual HeartMath event down in Mexico. Unbelievable. It always is. But, you swim in the ocean, right? And so I got out to the ocean, and there's that water, and you wade in to a certain point, and you're feeling it out. It's not really cold, but it's not quite warm. And so you wade it out. So I'm a little slow on this one. I don't like cold water. So I'm wading in. And there's a certain point when you got to say, are you going to go swimming or not?
Right.
And when you say yes, then you just dunk down in the water, and there you go. And then a few minutes later, you've adjusted to the water, and everything's fine. It's kind of like that in the new consciousness. We're already in the water. It's already there. We're already feeling it. We already know it's there. It's just taking that one last self-empowered step to go ahead and move into it and let go of some of that old stuff, and you'll be there. And then there's a few awkward moments in that, just like in the water, where you're a little colder than you want to be, but it goes away quickly. And then you're in a new place. Then you're in a whole new environment, a whole new world, a whole new perspective on things that relates into the quality of our lives.
Right. And I think just like at that moment that something shifted and I could ride my bicycle, I think in this respect, we're going to look back and think, I should have been doing this all along, and realize that at that point, the shift has taken us to a place where we can't go backwards.
That's right. Well, I think we're already there. It's like, the world's not going to go backwards. In other words, the shift that we're experiencing here is way bigger than people. It's happening whether we like it or not. What we can control is how gentle and kind a process it is or isn't. And our own resistances are what stand in the way right now of making it a good process, a gentle process. It's our resistances that are blocking that. And like I said, it's going down anyhow. The world is changing. It will change. It's a big shift that's happening. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than planet Earth. It goes way beyond even all of that. And so we're in the middle of it, and we're making conscious choices of how we relate to it. And many people struggle with that. People that don't have tools and techniques, people that are good folks that are just trying to get by in life out there, but they don't have a lot of understanding about these things. They're the ones that are struggling the most, and we need to have our compassion for those people, not our judgments about that. Right. We need to really have compassion for why people do the things that they do, or why they act certain ways that maybe not in consort with our own beliefs, and not see them as bad people. Just see them as, look, we're in a serious time right now, a time of great opportunity, but also great challenge. Put that heart out to those people. Give them the care, give them the compassion. Not only is it good for them, it's the fastest way that we can grow.
So, Howard, let's take a little step out there a little ways, if you don't mind. One of my favorite conversations I like to have with Bruce Lipton or Peter Russell is the global brain thing. Mm-hmm. And it's based on the fact that everything in life, consciousness, is this underlying field that has been bubbling up since the beginning of time, and it's built upon platforms, subatomic particles to atoms, atoms to cells, cells to molecules, and here we are today as planetary cells, human cells. You and I, we are part of a manifesting global consciousness. How do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, I feel like you're making a mistake talking to a knucklehead like Bruce Lipton. He and I actually started a club. It's called the Knucklehead Brothers.
Yeah.
Greg Braden's trying to get in, but we haven't decided whether to let him in or not. But we have fun together, and Bruce is a close friend and a great man. I'm just playing right now.
Bruce has taken me to the far corners of the universe with this thought.
It's not in the genes. It's not in the genes. But yeah, he's wonderful. I did a speaking tour early this year with him. He and I together paired up in Australia, in Sydney, Melbourne, and then New Zealand, Auckland, and Wellington. We had a blast.
Yeah.
But yeah, the global mind thing is interesting. I think the way I would characterize it, I'll put it in Heartmathish language, the things that I have learned and can speak to, is it's all about energetic connectivity. We all live in this vast field of consciousness that is reflecting back to us not just what we think up here in our minds, but what we feel here in our hearts. And science is now showing us that everything is connected at an energetic level. Every living system on our planet and beyond is connected through this vast web of energetic connections. And that's becoming, more and more known now. And science is proving it out more and more. Part of the new consciousness is coming in is for us to really be able to see that and understand it. Talking about everything as energy has been in the spiritual writings since, forever. And we understand that. Many people do, but it's conceptual understanding. It's a belief that we have. But what is happening now is we're starting to get evidence through science and evidence through our own personal experiences that take belief to knowing. And that's what Bruce speaks to. And that's some of the things that we do here at HeartMath through our research, is learning more about that energetic connectivity. So the energetic intelligence, so to speak, of how we begin to see things that way, whether it be how we see ourselves, how we see each other, how systems in the world operate, and how we begin to see those connections, medicine, science, all of that is being looked at now, and increasingly will be looked at through the lens of the energetic connections that exist within those things. So I believe that, to take it at another level, or another angle, would be this, is that the biggest service that you and I or anybody does in the world is making the changes inside ourselves, adjusting an attitude in a moment, going against the grain on a predictable pattern. What happens when we do that, it puts out a frequency into the energetic field environment that permeates the field of consciousness. It defies the limits of time and space. Goes beyond all of that. And what happens is it begins to modulate the field of consciousness in ways that reflects back down into other people's consciousness, so that it makes it easier for people around the world. We never see the total effects of our service. We never do, because it's happening at an energetic level. But every effort we make, every little thing that we do, every time that we put out more care or love, I believe it's affecting all those energetic connections. And that's the global mind you're talking about, the connection between all of us. And I think that we have the ability to have a positive influence on that collective field that's far more than we actually realize, far more than I realize. And I think that that's part of the gift and part of the fun that's coming our way as we begin to understand those things at a deeper level.
Yeah, I think one of the things you're really talking about here is conscious awareness. And what that brings to mind to me, there was a point in my life where I was dealing with an addiction. And every time I would succumb to the addiction, but be consciously aware and just nudge myself back, I realized each time I would do that, I would get stronger. And then I started realizing that there was another part of me that was becoming more conscious and more aware. And I think that's the whole problem, is looking at an emotion. Like if you're sad or upset, we tend to take a pill, but really we should embrace that sadness or the upset or the grief and process it through our system, because it's a meaningful emotion.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I'm not about suppressing emotions, but I think in the speed up of consciousness today, we got to make sure we don't linger too long
Yeah.
in those emotions. It's like experience it, observe it, move on, shift really quickly. We can make those shifts faster in ourselves. The old emotional patterns sometimes want us to hang on to these things. I'm not saying it's bad. Do not want anybody to feel like I'm saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that you still have more choice today to not be there than you used to.
Yeah.
And so making quicker shifts is part of the speed up in consciousness. So I can feel sad, I can feel down, I can have things come up in my life that are disconcerting, or they can be things from the past or whatever. I've learned to try my very best not to feed them any extra emotional energy. Is to say, okay, I'm experiencing that, that's okay. No self-judgment about it. But now let's move it on.
Right.
Let's pick it up a notch. Let's go ahead and shift to something else, because the something else is where the new lies. We learn from our past, but we don't create the new from being in the past.
Yep. I guess it's a matter of just get over it, move on. We hear that so much.
And those terms have been out there for a while, just get over it, whatever. And if you take that to a deeper level, a heart level, and then it takes on new meaning. And it's not just cavalier brushing it off or brushing it under the carpet, but it really is sort of consciously taking care of it. Okay, move on, get over it, whatever. Those are all sort of gross terms for something that can be a very heart-based, heartfelt experience that is being guided by someone's own intuition to say, okay, let's shift this and move it on. but not let it be something that where you've just brushed over it. I mean, people all the time can be having a problem with each other. They decide to talk about it, and then they go right to the, "Are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. You okay? Oh, sure, I'm okay." But it's not really real.
Right, right.
So you can't brush over things, but at the same time, you can't linger. So it goes back to that balance principle you were mentioning earlier. Where's the cutoff point when we need to stop feeling sadness? That requires listening sensitively to the voice of the heart, to know that that was okay to experience that, but now it's time to move on. And then all you have to do is just ask for your heart to give you the guidance of how to move on, and then just give it time and let it unfold.
And learn how to listen.
That's right. To yourself.
Right. So in the workshop in Mexico, it was
Yeah.
in Mexico. What was one of the things that came out of that workshop that really stuck with you, that made it all light up?
Oh, well, the whole thing is more than a workshop. That's what's interesting. It's so hard to describe this thing because I mean, I come home and I've been in almost like in a parallel universe, and it's been 40. I'm less than 48 hours away from it, and people here want to know, well, how did it go? And so I began to just say, well, the workshop was great, and Roland and I covered X, Y, and Z, and the weather was fantastic, and boy, the food was so good, and you wouldn't believe how beautiful it is down there in the Maya Riviera and all this stuff. And those are all great descriptors, but it's still not capturing something more magical that unfolds there. The people and the transformation that we all go through, and it's not some deep transformation. It happens in a different way. The way we structured this is really worked out. We do it in a really high class resort that's all inclusive. It doesn't feel overly touristy. There's jungle. The place we do the trainings back up in this beautiful jungle thing, and a wellness center, and yet we have the resort environment with it's all inclusive. So we have all the food and all the the things and the amenities that you would want. So people are learning deep things in a very comfortable and fun environment. In other words, they've got the best of both. And we don't do the training all day long. We do a session in the morning, and the afternoons are free, and that's when people go and experience the other things. And then at night we get back together, we do some dialogue, and then we do heart focused radiation activities. And so when you add all that up, there's this experience that happens over 4 days. And people come from a lot of places in the world to do this. We had people from, I think, 10 or 12 countries there this year. There are different backgrounds. We have cardiologists. We have people from the military. We have, former Navy SEALs. And we have all kinds of interesting people, as well as people deeply involved in spiritual practice or run their own spiritual groups or a lot of different things. And I guess the big aha is watching the bonding take place, watching all that come together, watching the sharing of ideas, watching the new friendships emerge. I've had people very quickly develop bonds with each other that they don't want to stop. They want to continue.
Right.
And so there are a lot of things. Roland McCready, our director of research, talks about the newest science that he has, right? And the latest things that he's working on. In a workshop like that, I'm able to talk about things like soul. I'm able to talk about things like consciousness and pitch and modulation of pitch and techniques to help maintain a certain vibratory rate and things like that. And those things are fun because we talk about the way we do it. Roland's going to bring the science in that he thinks most important, that he's working on. I'm going to work with Roland and with our founder, Doc Childry, and I'm going to try to bring in every year the things that I'm working on. What's
Right.
important to me right now? What are the things that are helping me? What are the things that, I'm benefiting from? Not just what did I say in a book 10 years ago? I'm trying to bring the newness to it. And so the overall experience ends up being something special. And if anybody, watching wants to do it next year, I encourage you to give it a shot. There were people that came this year that said, look, I didn't quite even know what this was. I just kept getting these messages. I finally decided I'm just going to do it. And if nothing else, I get a great trip to a cool place in Mexico. But oh my God, this if everybody knew that that's what happened down here, and it's non-linear. It's not like we're throwing something that we're planning all this out. We're trying to transform anybody. We're just
Right.
creating an environment that people can do that themselves in, and providing some information to get it done. And then people are taking it and running with it themselves and doing it in a way where they They come back, I think, what they tell me is regenerative. I'll say this: two people near the end of the program both said something similar. They said, I filled out the application in the back of the workbook, but it doesn't do this justice. I'm going to have to write you a letter about this because I can't capture what just happened here over these 4 days with everybody in an evaluation in a workbook. So I'm going to write you about that because I have to think about this because it was that good.
Well, I tell you one thing, Howard. I think organizations like HeartMath, and there's other ones out there too, but HeartMath is doing a really great job at bringing down some higher information and making it intelligible for the average person out there just trying to make a living, raise a family, but they're interested in
Yeah.
this stuff. And this is a way, because everybody doesn't have the time that people like you and I have to just
Yeah.
really get absorbed into this. So to bring it down into a level to where it's understandable, and to even have the technology to back it up and give reinforcement to it, I think is really important, because the way that we're headed right now has to be not dramatically shifted, but nudged slightly different, because we have a ways before we go
Yeah.
off the cliff. But
That's right.
if we can just keep nudging it over and over and to a higher level of awareness, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, well, I agree. And then we've always been about people. You're right. There are many organizations doing great things in the world today. I guess I can say from a heart-centric place that I'm proud of what HeartMath's been able to do and to play our role and our part in this whole thing. And we are reaching a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And there's obviously the person who's interested in and disposed to spiritual involvement and practice and things like that, and HeartMath appeals to them. But it also appeals to a broader range in many ways because we are able to step it down. And
Right.
when we have training going on in very mainstream organizations like hospitals and training thousands of nurses and things like that, or the training we've done in the military, or police forces, or in school systems, with families and with children and things like that, giving them simple tools and techniques. They don't have to understand all of the science. They don't have to understand consciousness and the type of things that you and I are talking about today. But we give them tools and techniques that connect them to their hearts.
Yep.
And in a way that they can then apply it, and it helps to reduce the stresses in their life. It gives them a sense of relief and that sort of thing. And that's important because the shift is about all people. It's not just about the spiritually elite. It's the ordinary folks that are, doing the best they can. So, like you, I know many people, and many greatly, highly intelligent people, some of them famous and all of that, and then I respect and honor those people. But no more than I respect someone like the single mother, who has 3 children, who has to work 2 jobs to support those children, and has to manage those children, and and all the things that a parent needs to do to guide, children, especially different ages, and yet somehow maintains an upbeat, positive, bright attitude in the middle of it, and still has the ability to light up other people's lives as she does whatever she does.
Yep.
Well, guess what? That's a hero to me.
Yep.
Someone like that is a hero to me, because to me, it's an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. And they never get noticed, or very rarely do they get noticed. And yet my heart goes out to them in a big time way. And if I have a soft spot in me, where my emotions come up a lot, it's about things like that,
Yeah.
to where it really gets to me when I see somebody doing that sort of thing. And I can actually sometimes, get a little emotional about it just because I want them to be fulfilled so bad.
Yeah.
You know.
I can actually feel that right now as you're talking.
Yeah.
In this area of my chest, I can
Yeah.
feel what you're saying here. I know sometimes my wife and I'll see a young couple with 2 or 3 kids in the grocery store and just going, my God, praise to you, because
It does, yeah.
it's a tough one. Well,
It is.
I'm seeing HeartMath show up in a lot of documentaries, the technology. So you are having an effect on a wide variety of directions, and more documentaries I see, they're using your research and your technology to back up what they're trying to say, and that's really great, Howard.
Yeah, there's a couple of movies out now that are getting some traction. One of them is called The Power of the Heart, which myself and Roland McCready are in. There's a lot of talking about that now. And the guy that made it is pretty extraordinary himself and had his own heart openings. Then he ended up using the people that actually produced The Secret to do all the production on it. It's the best produced of those movies I've ever seen. And the company we're keeping in that one's pretty cool too. Maya Angelou, Jane Goodall, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, those people there. And he filmed about 50 interviews, I think, of thought leaders around the world and chose 18 to be in the movie. There's also a book that accompanies the movie, and Roland and I are both in it. And there's another one called Incredible You, which is one that a guy did. Sorry, I got somebody backing up in my office here. Extraordinary You is done by a young space scientist from Romania that works with NASA, who did a movie about how do people succeed, how do they do extraordinary things. What I like about that movie is there's only two of the people that come from sort of my genre in that movie, and that's myself and Greg Braden, and the rest are like NASA scientist people. Right. Talking about how they do what they do, how they think like they think, how they've overcome their challenges. And they all talk about spiritual things. It all comes back to that. So those two are out getting a lot of play right now, a lot of publicity on those two movies, The Incredible You and The Power of the Heart. But we're showing up other places. Roland's in other ones. I'm in other ones. Deborah Rosman, who's the CEO here at Heartmath, shows up. So we are in the center of the movement, so to speak. And again, we've been doing this a long time. We've been now almost 25 years that we've been doing Heartmath here in a formal sense. And so I guess over time things accumulate. And
that they do.
But the fun part about Heartmath is I've always felt this, and I still feel it today. Maybe you and the listeners are getting this from me, is that I'm excited. There's no ceiling to this. The show's not over. You know what I mean? The adventure's just beginning to unfold to its next level, and there's plenty left to go. Yeah. And that's the exciting thing. And to have a life that doesn't feel like it has a ceiling, to me, is rare. And I'm fortunate enough to feel that way, and am greatly appreciative of that feeling.
Well, with self-awareness and consciousness, this is probably the beginning of an eternal journey.
For sure.
Well, Howard, I think this would probably do it. Do you have any final thoughts?
Well, just for people to keep checking out the Global Coherence Initiative, that's where we do bring people together from around the world using their heart focus, care, and intention. And we bring our science in. I know Roland was on your program a while back talking about the earth sciences, where we've got technology that we're monitoring the changes that occur in the Earth's geomagnetic and ionospheric fields. We're observing those, tying those to human behavior, the changes in those fields to human behavior, and over a long time testing a hypothesis is that we collectively are impacting those fields. Right. Mass human emotion is in fact in a dialogue with those fields and impacting those fields. So all that's still happening and still going really strong for us. So listeners can go to Global Coherence website, glcoherence.org, and become a member for free. There's, I think, about 70,000 members from over 100 countries that are part of this now. And people that that you've mentioned, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, Lynn McTaggart, Jack Canfield, all those people are involved on our boards and all that. And I just like to mention that because for a viewer, it's something you can participate in from anywhere you live in the world, and all you need to participate is right here.
Right.
That's it. And by coming together like that, we feel like we can make a difference in making things easier for that mother with those 3 kids.
Well, this is what it's about. The technology is helping us communicate collectively right now, and little by little that will balance out into a conscious collective feeling that we're all looking for.
And we're doing it, and shows like yours today are a part of it as well. I mean, you're getting a lot of information out there to people. I hope people listening today have felt more like just hanging out with us and hearing us have a conversation rather than me talking to them or any of those sort of things. Right. Just a casual conversation about what we might be talking about if we were, riding in a car somewhere, about the shift that's happening and what's going on and all that, because that's the way it should feel.
It's exactly it, Howard. All right. I really appreciate your time, and welcome back to the United States. And maybe my wife and I will see you next year at the next event.
That would be fantastic, and I appreciate you having me on your program.